Hi, welcome to another video of me doing another proof from either a homework or a quiz you've taken in the past. Let's look here where I'm trying to prove that JF is congruent to GF. Well, the first thing I notice since I'm trying to prove that I'm proving a side lengths are congruent, I know my last step has to be CPCTC, which again stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Since I'm solving for a side length, that's how I know I have to use CPCTC. So anytime you're trying to solve for a side length or an angle measure, that's when you're always going to use corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent to prove that these two are in fact congruent. Now, if you can look back at your previous homework, we were proving that triangles were congruent. There's a difference between the side lengths and the triangles. If I'm trying to prove that a triangle is congruent, well, then I could just use the six postulates and theorems we reviewed in class. So again, let's look at what we're given. We're given angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. So I know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And it's very important that you kind of mark your triangles as you're going along with me. That way the information is all on your picture and you can kind of see, okay, well, how am I in fact going to prove that these triangles are congruent, which will allow me to prove that JF is congruent to GF. So I know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and I also know that EF is congruent to HF. Okay, and I'm trying to prove that JF is congruent to GF just by using my given in the picture. So that's kind of where you're going to find this information. The only information you're allowed to use is your picture and what you're given. I don't know that this is a midpoint of anything, so I can't really say that. But the very first thing I know I have to do is at least write down what I'm given. So I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And the reason I know that is because it's given to me. So I'm just going to label that given. I also know that EF is congruent to HF because that's in fact given as well. And like I said, make sure you label them on your triangles just like I have up here. It makes it easier to see how we're going to prove these triangles are congruent. Alright, well, I know I need to prove JF is congruent to GF. And I don't really know how I'm going to do that yet. So let's take a look at these two triangles up top here. Well, I can't really say that these sides are congruent because they're not labeled for me. It's not part of the given, so I can't really work with that side. But let's take a look at these angles here. I have angle 3 and I have angle 4. Okay, so what do I know about these angles? So if my picture makes like an X here, remember if we see the X, we got to look for either vertical angles that make the X. If they make a Z-shaped picture, that's where I'm going to be using alternate interior angles. But again, I don't know that these lines are parallel, so I can't say that these are alternate interior angles. Even though they might look like they are, I do not know that GH is parallel to EJ, so I can't assume that 1 and 2 are alternate interior angles. But I do know that JG and EH are intersecting, so I know that these angles here, 3 and 4, must be vertical angles by vertical angles are congruent. So let's write that down in one of our statements. I know angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 because vertical angles are congruent. Vertical angles are congruent. Okay, so now I need to, before I prove that JF is congruent to GF, I have to prove that these triangles are congruent. So let's prove that triangle EJF is congruent to triangle HGF. And what is the reason how I know that these triangles are congruent? And if this is where you're struggling, I know that I'm going to have to pick one of those 6 postulates and theorems. I'm either going to have to prove that their triangles are congruent by side, 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 by angle, angle, side, angle, and the hypotenuse leg, Things like that I need to look for. What do I know, or how do I know that these triangles are congruent? Well, I'm given two angles and a side. Well, since I'm given angle, side, angle, I can say that these triangles are congruent by the angle, side, angle postulate. And since I know that these triangles are congruent, that means side JF must be congruent to GF, because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. That means all the parts are congruent. I can even assume now, since I proved that these triangles are congruent, that I know 100% that angle J and angle G are also have to be congruent, but that won't really help me with my proof. So I can stop here. I know that JF is congruent to GF because of CPCTC. And again, that stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So I hope this helps you, and if you're having any more questions or difficulties with your homework, please write your questions down on a piece of paper and bring them into class today or tomorrow, and Mrs. Rothen or myself can kind of help you fix those misconceived notions that you're kind of struggling with. So let's make sure we can fix it before it gets too far where you're getting lost. So any questions you have, please bring them into class today, and we can kind of fix those things for you. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.